Hello, my paranormal peeps, and welcome back to another Deep Woods Paranormal podcast. This is Matt Harvey. I am the founder and lead investigator of Deep Woods Paranormal. I'm also the host of the Deep Woods Paranormal podcast. Tonight we have on Hugh Knight with us. He is a Bigfoot researcher from Washington, and he's going to kind of tell us about his Bigfoot experiences. So, with that, Hugh, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about what got you into finding Bigfoot, literally?
Yeah, man. Prior to getting involved with this, I was not necessarily a Bigfoot believer. I didn't really think much about Bigfoot either way. I guess in my back of my mind, I thought maybe they exist, probably not. But I was a big believer in paranormal. I've had a lot of weird experiences in that, but I never really thought a big hairy
Yeah,
forest dwelling,
right.
hominoid made sense to even be correlated with UFOs or, paranormal spirits or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that all changed one day. I live in a neighborhood, kind of a nice middle class area, just houses in every direction, not wilderness whatsoever, but lots of trees and lots of green spaces and little forested areas. So it kind of has this artificial feel like you're out in the wilderness, but you're not. It's highways and homes and everything in every direction. But just 30 minutes away, you are pretty deep wilderness into the Columbia River Gorge. The Columbia River runs right by my neighborhood. You can actually see the Columbia River from my house. So we're right by the Columbia River. And so I'm walking one night with my dog. It's about 11:15 at night. And that evening, we were catching a flight at midnight. So I was taking my dog on a quick walk because I had a house sitter and a dog sitter going to stay at my house. So we didn't have a lot of time. So I took her on a walk, went up this road about a quarter mile from my house, less than a quarter mile. And right on the side of the road, this is a very private road. There's only two houses that are at the end of this road up on top of a hill. They're both like multi-million-dollar homes up there. And on the side of the road was a deer. My dog sniffed it out and I saw it and I shined the light from my cell phone on it. And this deer had been mangled, every organ removed from it. Its lungs, intestines, everything was gone. The front legs were ripped clean off. And there was no cut marks that showed that a hunter did it with a blade. It was all like ripped, torn, peeled. I mean, this thing looked like it got hit by a train. And there was no blood in the grass around it, but there was blood inside the rib cage. But wherever this thing was gutted, it didn't take place right there because there would have been a mess of blood all over the place. And in the stomach sac, the bile sac was completely untouched, which that's hard to do for a skilled hunter to not rupture that. Because if you rupture that, it ruins the meat. It gets that acid all over everything. And so this thing just blew my mind because I knew it wasn't done by a cougar or a bear. Cougars, we do get a deer occasionally come through the neighborhood. We get a coyote that'll run through the neighborhood every now and then. But you never see bear or cougar around here, and it's possible, but they're incredibly rare in these neighborhoods. They're way more. And it didn't make sense to me that a bear or cougar could have done this because they don't eat their animals like that. This was like a full-blown harvest of all the innards of this animal done carefully without rupturing the stomach sac. And all of the meat that a human would want was untouched. Like they wanted nothing to do with that type of meat. And it was laid in this path that I walk all the time. And it just creeped me out. Like whatever did this is powerful, is carnivorous, whatever did this. Yeah. And I'm sitting there with just my dog. My dog's a 3-legged pit bull. She's a good protector, but I mean, whatever did this to this deer, we weren't going to be able to stand up to. And I'm looking around, kind of paranoid. I took a couple quick pictures with my phone. And I got back home and I sent some pictures to some hunters I know. And, have you ever seen anything like this? And I didn't have time to really do anything. I wanted to report it to like the game people, like I wanted to do a lot, but I couldn't because I had to come home, load the car, drive to the airport, and we flew to Mexico. So, an hour after seeing this thing, I was at the airport. And so it was in the back of my mind, though, the whole vacation. We were gone for a week. And when I got home, I immediately went up there to see what was left of it. And the deer was gone. No sign of it. And that sent me down this path of watching Bigfoot stuff, watching Dogman stuff, like trying to really understand what might have been responsible for this. Like, is there a werewolf in my neighborhood? Like, what the hell? It creeped me out. And I started finding all this stuff about Sasquatch that I wasn't aware of. I watched a bunch of like Todd Standing videos, and stuff like that. And I actually could go on about Todd. He and I started talking for a while, but that's a whole nother story. I'm not a big fan of Todd. Anyway, but at the time I'm seeing his videos, I'm seeing the faces, that he captured, and I'm thinking, are these real? Like, are these like, why have I never heard of this guy? And a whole bunch of other stuff, and so Bigfoot was on my mind, prevalently on my mind. And I had a trip scheduled. I was going mining up in the mountains for agates and crystals because I'm just amateur miner, rock hound. I've been collecting crazy rock. I don't know if you get behind me is a bunch of rocks I've cut and polished, stuff like that. And so I was up in the mountains near the Oregon-Washington coastline, near the Columbia River, real rural logging wilderness area. And I was up there running a jackhammer and breaking these rocks out of these other rocks and spent hours working on this rock. Couldn't get it out. And I just kept thinking about Sasquatch because I was alone at this point in time. I had my son and my father with me earlier that day, but they had left and went back to my parents' house, which is about 45 minutes away from where I was at this point. And I decided to take a break. And I wanted to just kind of climb this hillside and look for rocks, see what I could find in this hillside. And I wanted to get to this viewpoint and look out because it's a phenomenal viewpoint into this valley below. And I was just telling myself, I'm going to go see if I can spot a Sasquatch. Why not? I just feel like taking a break, And so I'm climbing up the embankment. I'm putting rocks in my pocket along the way because I'll fill my pockets with rocks and then I check them out once I can rinse them. And a lot of them just get thrown back on the ground. It's just kind of my process. And so I'm getting to the top. My pockets are bulging with rocks. And I look out into this valley and it's maybe like 10 seconds into my scanning of the lower valley. And I'm like saying to myself, like, oh, that's funny because that black object down there actually looks like a Sasquatch. And I'm not thinking it is one. I'm thinking it's a shadow. It's a stump, like there's no way you don't climb up to look for a Sasquatch and see one, and I'm staring at it and it starts walking and it has long arms and legs and it's walking and I'm just staring at this thing like, what the, like, no, what, I didn't even know how to even take it in, and I'm just staring at this thing and I'm like, that's a freaking Sasquatch, And so I'm like, where's my phone? Where's my phone? Every pocket is full of rocks. I don't have my phone. I look over my shoulder. I could see my truck from where I was at. It was down below me, parked on the gravel road. I'm way up on top of them, and I'm just like, shit, what do I do? What do I do? And I'm looking at Sasquatch, and I'm looking at my truck. And I'm like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? And I'm thinking, do I take my eyes off of it and just, because I'm like, as soon as I leave and get my phone, come back, it's going to be gone. And I'm just like, what do I do? What do I do? And then I said, you know what? Nobody's going to believe me. Nobody's ever going to believe this. I'm like, I'm going to get the phone. So I turn and I jump and I tumble and run down this cliff, making an avalanche of rock and debris. And I get to the road and I run to my truck as fast as I can, grab my phone. I turn around, start running back, and I just got rocks in every pocket. So I stop. I pull all these rocks out, just drop them on the ground and climb back up there. And I get back to the top. Record time. I've never climbed that hill that fast in my life. And I'm just out of breath. Like if you watch the video on my YouTube channel, it starts out with me just because I just done this run and this climb, and it took me a minute. But if my first scan, I couldn't find the Sasquatch anywhere. I'm looking all over for it, and like, oh, it's gone. Not this video, but it would be one of my first videos I ever put on. It would be this one, mountaintop view of a Sasquatch.
Right here. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you gonna play it right now?
Yep.
Okay. Oh,
I'm not
turn
gonna
the
do the
audio on.
sound.
Oh, it won't do sound.
I'm not gonna put the sound on
Oh,
because
okay.
we
Yeah,
can
it's
just watch it as you're talking about it. Keep going.
yeah. So this is. It took me a minute to find it, and I thought it was gone, and then I found it, and it's unfortunately that my phone doesn't zoom very well. And right now I'm okay. It's the little dot right in the middle of the screen, right there. And yeah, right there. That's it. And it's frustrating that I could see it so much clearer with my eyes. I have really good eyesight, especially
Right.
farsighted. And I filmed this thing for like 40 minutes, but a lot of it was just so junk that we deleted it out and turned it into an 18-minute video
Yeah.
because clouds will eventually start rolling in and blocking my shot. And so I would turn it off and start filming again. But what's so bizarre is once I started filming, it didn't walk anymore. And I don't know if it could sense me filming it or what, but the whole time I film it, it stays in this spot. But if you look close enough, you can see the movement of the creature. And what I didn't know, and I found out the next day when I came back up there, is there's a big stump directly on the other side of that creature. And so it's possible that it was digging grubs out of that stump, because since then I have documented how all of the old punky stumps in that area have been dug through. In fact, if you go to a different video called Sasquatch Feeding Grounds of mine, I can show you what all of the stumps in that area look like, very top left. And so every stump of this age, which that's the same age of the stump that creature was in front of, has been ripped and torn and dug through. And there's, the red crumbly duff from the insides is strewn about everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And bears do that too, so obviously a naysayer would bring that up. But I mean, I literally watched that Sasquatch in front of that stump for an hour. Originally I didn't know there was a stump there, but now I know what he was doing, what I believe he was doing, was digging in these stumps. And this video, you let it play for a second because there's a good example of one that they've really just tore out. And I'll have you pause on it. It's, and it's all over this wilderness where I'm finding all kinds of evidence of Sasquatch. But these stumps of this age, every one of them has craters in it, holes in it. So I really strongly believe that these grubs in the springtime, right there, that one, they really dug that thing out. And so my plan is to put a whole bunch of game cameras up in these areas where all these stumps are in the spring, because I think that's when these grubs are hatching, is early spring when the eggs start hatching. And so because that's when I saw it. It was right around Father's Day. And I think these stumps are going to lead to me getting some footage, or getting more evidence, And so, okay, so I have this footage, and the footage isn't good. I mean, I'm the first to admit that. It's so far away. It's really vague. I knew it wasn't going to blow anybody's mind. So I knew I had to find better proof. So I planned a trip, a 3-night, 4-day trip out there. And I actually made a video of it, just a short little video of my first solo camping trip out there. And,
Is this alone overnight?
Yeah, alone overnight. Yeah, that was my first going out, and just shows me with getting my gear ready. And my first night there was just, I was fogged, so fogged out. And, but this trip, and it's not in this video. I don't show my discovery in this video. I'm working on videos. I'm horrible with all of this stuff, and I'm brand new at it. My channel's only been up for like maybe a month. So I have a lot to learn. But I set out on a lot of journeys in different directions trying to find evidence. And I think it was my third day, I went
Look
into
at
this.
that. Look at that. You got one right there, dude.
Yeah, it looks like something's there.
Shoulder, head, standing behind a tree. Yep. There's something standing there.
Yeah, it
We've
certainly
been
looks
analyzing,
like it.
if you guys, just so you guys know, we've been kind of looking over this video. Every time we get to about, what, 2 minutes, I don't know where he was. He can
Yeah.
describe where he was, but I keep seeing things in these videos.
Well, this is just a gravel road that I have to take to get to the main research area. But this gravel road I call is part of my research area. And this is a road that I call Tree Break Alley because there's just bizarre tree breaks for 2 miles going the
Yeah,
whole length of the road. And they're on both sides of the road and they're everywhere. And so I've always called it Tree Break Alley. But yeah, that definitely looked like
there's a,
a
yeah,
black
there's a
object
branch
back in there.
snapped off here.
Well, that snap right there is actually done by a human because
Oh,
that's the tip of the tree where the tree got pushed over, broke off, and that was in the road blocking cars. So somebody cut that off with a hatchet. But I show it in the video.
sad.
But the actual tree itself was broke off by a crazy force that snapped it off. But that little break is from an axe or a hatchet.
Let's see if I can find this right there. Look at that. Right there and right there. There's something taller on this side.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But so originally I thought you were looking more at
the
something to the
arm,
left,
the
but
torso. You can see another shadow here that comes out like over here somewhere. That's a big one.
it's something
They're hard
dark
to
and
see. I've had to learn to watch. I don't know how many trap cam videos I've watched, but my friend was an avid hunter, and he goes, "Look, you're missing the Bigfoots." I'm like, "What are you talking about? There's nothing there." And he goes, "Look." And he zoomed in, and I'm like, "Oh my God, there's one standing right in the damn tree line." This is what they do. They stand in the tree line. They
yeah,
stand right in the tree line, and they watch, and they look like trees. I mean,
and they always try to keep a layer of foliage between you and them because it
oh
makes
yeah,
it so hard to see them and focus on them that way.
yeah. But there's definitely something here. You can see how big this one is too. You can kind of see what looks like a shoulder coming down here, head, and an arm. You kind of see a face almost. Big burly chest. So here's an arm,
Yeah,
head.
it's hard to say. I see stuff like this in my video stuff that I missed, and I do want to like point it out, but then again, I don't want people to be like, oh, that could be anything. So I try to not get too excited about stuff unless it's more concrete, just because my whole purpose of this channel is to sway naysayers to the side of believing because people need to know these things are real,
Yeah,
and it's really hard to pull a non-believer out of their socks, unless
right.
it's really conclusive. But like that's why I want like the upside down trees. So I want to get to them. So this is my first trip up there to find evidence. I had a bunch of people saying, "Oh, you probably saw a bear, or you probably saw this, or oh, who knows what it was." So I had to go find better evidence. And the day before I got to this canyon, I found a really good footprint, and you could show that video. It's only a minute long. If you want to go to my shorts really quick. Let's see. Yeah, go there, and then it should be all the way to
Starting
the
to run
bottom.
out of time too. We got about 8 minutes remaining.
Oh, okay.
So
Shit.
let's see,
Oh,
which one is it?
go down all the way down. And then it's Bigfoot exploring a river right there. That one. So this was a footprint I found on that
Let's see
trip,
that.
and
Back here for a second.
yeah, you can see the
Let's
toes cut
see
through the
better.
moss. You can see the heel.
Let me pause this. It doesn't pause.
And that was a trail. I had to
Over here,
walk.
you can see the toes and stuff.
Yeah, well, that's the
It's
ankle on the
pause.
back, and the toes are in the moss. And so that got me pretty excited when I found that footprint because I was like, okay, now I'm finding a footprint. I know I saw one. And so there's another section of canyon I wanted to get to. And the canyon was over right by the sighting where I saw one. And I'm walking through that river, knee deep in water, using the river as a path. And all of a sudden, off to my left, I see a giant log upside down standing there. And I'm just like, oh shit, and so I found that site, and there's about 13, 14, 15 upside down trees in that site. And I have a 1 hour long video in here all about the upside down trees. And I really dive in deep with them, explaining the upside down trees. But that was a big deal for me. That's when I really knew, okay, Sasquatch is real. I saw one. Now I'm finding evidence of them. And since then, I've found more footprints. I found a bunch of X structures. I found a lot of evidence since then. And I've had vocalization. The one time I've been scared, like truly frightened, my dog and I were climbing out of a canyon. And I had about 100 pounds of rocks on my back because I was finding agate deposits that I'd never even dreamed I'd ever find. That's another interesting thing. I went out looking for rocks. I found a Sasquatch. Now I go looking for Sasquatch, and I'm finding rocks like I would have never thought existed. Huge agates the size of basketballs and stuff like that. And so I'm hiking out of a canyon with these rocks on my back, and this Sasquatch down in the bottom of the canyon where we just came from built out the craziest roar I've ever heard in my life. It just rattled me to the core. My dog, who's a protector, watchdog, she curled up into like a little ball. Her ears went back, and she looked at me like I needed to protect her, and normally she's fired up, like ready to go. But whatever that sound was, it petrified her, and it was a really eerie sound. It's really hard to even describe, but that's the only time I've ever really been afraid out there doing it. And it seemed like a warning, but I've been back to that canyon several times since then. And so I know we're running out of time, but I wanted to get in about the pine cones because that was kind of so. During hunting season, I was just kind of assuming that these creatures probably left that area, right? Like, okay, hunting seasons, a lot of hunters come out here now. They're probably going to leave the area. That was just a theory I had. And I came to visit that area, and it was about 5 or 10 days into the beginning of, I believe it was archery and black powder season. And this brand new arch had been built. Like huge, crazy arch where they took a Doug fir tree and bent it into an arch, and they wedged the second half of the tree up underneath a neighboring tree. And you could see big old scars on the neighboring tree where they had to work it and force it and manipulate it to hold that position and wedge it against the neighboring tree. And I had a geologist with me that day, a friend of a friend who's a geologist. He was curious about the rocks I was finding. And we go to investigate this arch tree, and he actually is the one who found this pine cone on the ground. And he picks it up, and he's telling me, like, do you not know how weird this is? I'm like, it's pine cone, I don't know. It's a weird looking pine cone. He's like, dude, this is a species of trees that will not grow in this area, period. It is not from here, and it's underneath your, and he'd say your Sasquatch, because he wasn't sure if he's a believer or not. He wasn't sure if I'm crazy or not. And he's like, it's underneath your arch that you're all wowed about. And I'm telling you, this pine cone had to have been brought here. And it's a big old pine cone, like this big. And we looked into it. It's a subalpine. It's a tree that grows in high elevations, several hundred miles away. It does not grow there. So the creatures had to have, or something had to have brought that pine cone there. And it was directly underneath that brand new arch. And that brand new arch was almost like an announcement to me. Like, you think we're going to leave because of hunters? No, idiot. And they build this thing just to, like, I don't know, rub it in my face or something. It's just kind of how I perceived it. So then a month later or so, I'm up there and I have my son with me. And we're investigating other tree bends and arches and weird stuff going on. And we find another tree done the exact same way, bent, arch, twisted, all of that. And I'm filming, I got my camera up and I'm talking about the arch, and my son goes, hey, Dad, what's this? And I look over and he's pointing at the ground, and on the ground, something had cleared all the moss and all the pine cones away, or all the dirt, all the debris. So it's clear, open dirt. And right in the very middle of it, another one of those giant subalpine pine cones was stabbed into the earth, intentionally stabbed. And all this is on video when I pull it up and remove it. I haven't put that video on the channel yet. I'm gonna. It's hard because I have all these different pieces of footage on different SD cards, and I'm working on that. But it just, to me, that just proves that these creatures are methodical. It proves to me that they either migrate or they're transitory when they travel. I mean, these pine cones are from that far away. These pine cones didn't come there by a bird. A squirrel or a chipmunk didn't stab them into the earth like that. And something bent these arches and made them. It's just crazy. And there's been other incidents too with vocalizations. I don't know how much more in depth do you want to keep going, or
We can keep going. What I can do is after this is over, we'll just start another recording.
Okay. So one time I was walking into this canyon. I'm always in canyons. And I get to the bottom of this canyon. I'm all by myself because I do a lot of this alone. And I don't think of them as monkeys or apes. I just don't. I think of them more as like, I don't know what I think of, but I just, in my mind, I don't think they're just a dumb primate. I think they're so much more than that. And so I was shocked when I came into the bottom of this canyon. I'm hearing this like this sound that sounded like what a gorilla would sound like when it's curious or stressed out or something, and I'm hearing this sound and it sounds like it's so close to me, just 20 feet, 10 feet. It was like right around this little bend. And I mean, I had a camera in my hand. I had a helmet camera on. I had all this stuff. And I don't understand. I think about this all the time because instead of going towards that sound, I turned around and went the other way. And it was, I don't know what was going on with me. And it's almost like, I don't know, I wasn't even in control of what I was doing, because it wasn't until like an hour or two later that I realized, why wouldn't I have done that? Like, why didn't I go and
what were you doing?
Yeah. And I don't know if it was fear. I mean, some people say they have the powers to like mess with your mind. And I just can't understand why the hell I went the other way. Maybe it was out of fear. I went the other way. And I had game cameras that way. I wanted to check anyway. And so I wandered off up towards these waterfalls, where I have the game cameras, and checked the camera. There was nothing good on the cameras. And
Okay, guys, so we got cut off, unfortunately. We had to come back on. So we're back with Hugh, and he's going to continue to tell his stories. So let me go back on here and share his YouTube channel, because we were talking about different videos he was talking about. You were talking about the footprints.
Yeah, I think the last, what we were talking about was
shorts.
Well, we kind of moved on from there. We were talking about when I heard that sound and I went the other direction.
Yeah, that's right. You were down by the creek and then you turned around and ended up over by a waterfall or something.
Yeah. And other than that, there's been other vocalization experiences that were pretty strange. I was exploring, going up a creek one time, because the creeks really are the only way you can get in and out of these places, because the canyon walls are so steep on both sides that you just got to get in the creek and walk in the water. And but then you find areas, that open up and are flat, but just getting in and out of the canyons is so hard. I've done it. I've climbed up and down the walls, but it's a brutal climb. And so I'm walking in this creek, and it's just my my dog and me, and I kept hearing this crazy whistle that would blast down at me from time to time, and it was just like wherever I went, it would whistle, and then like I wouldn't hear it for 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes. Then it'd whistle down at me, and so it was like something was following us and watching us the whole time we were in this canyon. And it was like I don't know, letting me know, I guess. I'm watching you. I'm watching you is kind of how it felt. I never saw anything that day. But another time I was in a different section of that same canyon, I wasn't hearing a whistle, but I kept seeing a reddish, like fire brown, reddish brown color flash through the woods. And I just see glimpses of it because there was so much foliage between me and it. And I wasn't sure what it was because the Sasquatch I saw was a dark black, like brown, dark color. So this, fox fire red brown color, I didn't know what it was. It wasn't what I was looking for. And I kept seeing it, and I got my camera out and I zoomed into the trees, and I'm telling the camera, like, I keep seeing this weird color and I can't seem to get a sight on it. And then, that I kind of forgot all about that day until, months later, I'm looking at old footage and I'm going through SD cards. And
That's
then
how it starts.
yeah. And then I find this piece of footage where I'm playing with this camera, and it's a digital camera that attaches to my spotting scope. And it's just a cheap little crappy digital camera, but it's kind of cool. It mounts right to a spotting scope, and then my spotting scope becomes a digital camera. So I can get footage like a mile away with that thing.
Dang.
And on that particular day I was using it, the sun was shining on my back. So the sun was shining across my screen. So I couldn't see what I was filming. I was just playing with it, testing it out, scanning around the lower valley because I was on a mountaintop on this day. And I filmed for like a few minutes, just scanning all over the place. And then, so that was the footage that I reviewed. And I went right across this stump. And there's this, what looks like very likely is the head of a Sasquatch. It's not like perfect conical shape because there might be some hair or little tufts of hair on it or something. But it is a fire red, brownish color, and it looks like the Sasquatch was leaning against a stump. And it's a big old stump because the stumps out there are huge. Those are old growth trees that were cut down in like the early 1900s or something.
Dang.
The rotten ones are, at least. So there's stumps. I'll encounter stumps out there that are 15 feet wide. It's crazy. And so I don't know how big for sure this stump is, but I strongly suspect that the Sasquatch was on the backside of it, leaning against it, just chilling, and didn't even probably realize that, about 40% of its head or 30% of its head was just above that stump.
Yeah.
And that's what I believe I just caught a little piece of its head. And so, yeah, I've been jumping all over with this interview. Usually I'm more structured on everything, but so I'm trying to remember all my little adventures with Sasquatch. I've had some really weird experiences that I don't even really like to tell people about because it almost makes me sound like I'm insane. But
you're a paranormal investigator. You are insane.
Yeah,
you and me both. We go to places people don't want to go, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so on a couple of trips, because I use e-bikes a lot because I can't get past these gates because all these gates are locked because it's all logging land. It's all owned by logging corporations, and they're very tight on security, trying to keep people out. So I use e-bikes to get past the gates and get into some of these really deep areas to investigate. And so on this particular trip, I'm deep into an area I'd never been in before. And I had this really uncomfortable feeling as I'm getting in there. And all of a sudden I crash. Like I ran into a brick wall, but I was going really slow. So it wasn't like bad. My leg was scraped up and bleeding a little from gravel. And, and I just get up and I'm just like, what happened? Like, how did I crash? Like, it just didn't make any sense that I crashed, but I crashed. So I get back on my bike and I ride a little further. And then I realize I'm missing a Powerade, and I have these saddlebag like pouches on my bike that I keep gear in, but there's a little pocket on the top that I had a Powerade in and it was gone. So, okay, it fell out when I crashed. So I turn around and I go back and I searched all over the crash site, couldn't find it anywhere. So I'm like, that's really weird because it's a good little pouch. It doesn't fall out, from bumps and stuff like that. But I'm just like, okay, well, I guess somehow it came out and I'll find it on the way home. And I never did ever find that Powerade ever. And there isn't vehicles up there driving around. Nobody's driving around up there. They're all locked out. I mean, occasionally crews do go out there and log, but at this time period, there wasn't any other vehicles out there. So it was really weird that I never found it. But hey, I didn't know what to make of it. And so as I'm cruising around trying to find the Powerade and just kind of exploring the gravel roads on my bike, I park and I go down this trail a little ways, look around, make some videos, and then I go back to my bike and my mace was gone. This can of mace that's usually on my bike. And I'm like, where the hell did my mace go? And it wasn't like a big canister of bear mace because I'd forgotten my bear mace that day. So I bought this at the gas station, like little cheapo mailman mace. And it was gone. So then I went back up that road trying to find the mace because it should have been laying on the gravel road. If it just fell off my bike somehow, it should have been in the road. I never found it ever. Never found the drink ever. And so, I thought that was weird. I thought it was weird that I crashed. I thought it was weird that all this stuff disappeared, but I wasn't trying to jump to conclusions at that point. And then another trip, months later, I had 2 Powerades in my bicycle, and I ride my bike deep, deep into the woods. I hide my bike in the bushes, completely hidden. And I open up that pouch and I take one Powerade and I see the other one in the bag. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to leave that there because when I get back from this hike, it'll be here waiting for me at the bike. I don't need to carry it around. I'm just going to leave it here. I remember all this conversation in my head. And so I go out, I explore, I do what I'm doing. I come back hours later and I go to my bike and I open up the pouch and the Powerade's gone.
Oh, no.
And it gets weirder. So, and of course, you could say, oh, hunters or somebody might have found my bike and stole it. But the thing is, I had valuables in that pack, way more valuable than a Powerade. And
Yeah.
nobody touched those, but the Powerade was gone. So I actually got kind of mad and yelled into the bushes, at the Sasquatch, I don't even remember what I said, but I was kind of freaked out, this was weird. I didn't know what to make of it. And then I get on the bike. I ride all the way back to my truck. My truck's locked, alarmed. I open up the door and the Powerade's in my truck.
Oh my gosh.
And sitting there on the center console thing, just sitting there. And, and I don't know how to explain that, man.
Ghost. Had to be a ghost.
It was so bizarre because and then of course I'm just second guessing myself. God, I remember so vividly that they were both in the bike, and why would I have left it in the truck when I brought them specifically for this trip? It just made no sense. But there it was, just sitting in the truck. It was just so creeped me out, really weird. And then the closest I've ever came to actually being near one of these things was I found an old logging road that nobody had been down in years because it was all overgrown with brush and trees. Logs had fallen and blocked it. So nobody'd been to this section of forest in a long time, other than maybe on foot. No vehicles had been down there in probably a decade. So I was there with chainsaws, and I cut and cleared all of that out so I could drive back and camp in a section of forest that nobody had camped in a long, long time, because I wanted to camp somewhere where these creatures, these beings, would be used to traversing at night and not bumping into people. I figure they know where to go, where not to go. And so I set up this campsite, and I set up this sort of laser light display, Christmas light, flashy lights, and all this kind of looked like just a real low budget rave type setup, in the woods. And and I just wanted to create some kind of weird thing that they wouldn't be used to seeing, to pique their curiosity, to see if it would bring them around me. What is this? What are these lights? What's going on here? And I set up game cameras the first couple nights, and nothing happened. Nothing came in. You know, for the background, it'd be better if you played the upside down tree video. I think just because there's big upside down trees and it's kind of amazing stuff. Just suggestion. Okay, so uh, back to the camping trip. So my buddy shows up and he's camping with us on the last night, and that night I forgot to set up the game cameras. I just didn't think to do it and went to bed. And I had set my alarm on my phone to wake me up at 4 a.m., 3:45 in the morning. I was going to go out with night vision in the middle of the night. But my buddy was talking my ear off all night. And so I didn't end up getting to bed till midnight because of him. And so my alarm goes off around 3:40, 4 a.m. And I'm dog tired and my alarm goes off and I sit up and I'm like, I should get up. And then that's when I realized that there's a giant shadow on my tent moving slowly past my tent. And it's the shadows being created because of all the lights I had out there. You know, otherwise you wouldn't be able to see a shadow, you know, at night in the woods. And so I'm staring at the shadow and I'm kind of nervous. You know, I have my son with me. He's 9. But I reach over and grab my camera and I turn the button on and it goes dee, 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 dee. And then I don't know how I thought this was going to work because I still had to unzip the tent. I had to go out there and try to get footage, you know,
Yeah.
but as soon as the dee, dee, dee noise went on my camera, that shadow just went poof across my
Yep.
tent. It was gone.
Yep.
And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, gosh, I should just stay in here. My son's in here. I shouldn't go wander around the woods, leaving him all alone in the tent. You know, my dog was there, but so I end up falling back asleep. And then when I wake up, I start making coffee. My buddy wakes up. He slept in his vehicle. He has like it's kind of like a Subaru, but it's not a Subaru. It's like a all-wheel drive kind of whatever. I forget what it is. And he's crawling out of his vehicle and he's like, man, what were you doing, dude? All over my car last night. Like, dude, I didn't get out of the tent last night. I didn't leave the tent last night. And he goes, dude, somebody was all around my car looking in the windows. And he goes, I thought it was you playing with your night vision. And so no, dude, it wasn't me, bro. I did not leave the tent. That's when I told him about the shadow that I saw right by my tent. So whatever it was, I mean, it wasn't a bear. Bears are big, dumb, clumsy animals. They make noise. They bump into everything. You know, they don't tiptoe through your campsite. They stumble through your campsite. You know, and a deer wasn't going to come that close to our tent and be in our campsite in the middle of the night. So I really strongly believe that was a Sasquatch in our camp that night. I can't prove it because the game cameras weren't set up. And it almost seems like, you know, somehow this thing knows. You know, they didn't come in the other nights when the game cameras were up. They come in the one night the
Yep.
game cameras aren't set up.
Yep.
You know, it's just insane.
That's
It's
happened to
mad.
me. That happened to me too.
Yeah.
I turned off the cameras, took them down. Next night, I got bumped. Something literally like pushed the tent in. I was
Yeah.
at Joe's camp, what I was telling you about before, with the guy with he had Bigfoots right on his property. And I
Uh,
camped on his property, which I was terrified of. And something reaches in and pushes the tent into the side and touches me. I'm like, oh crap. Wasn't quite
wow.
asleep. But yeah, it
Uh,
scared the hell out of me.
and
I,
there's stories of them peeing on people's tents. You know, like have you ever heard anybody talk about that?
yes, I've heard people talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, that shows to me that they have a sense of humor, you know, that they're like, you know, they're just messing with people, you know.
Marking their territory.
Yeah, but maybe not. Maybe it's just to be funny, just to mess with you. Like I'm gonna go piss on this person's tent because they can't do anything about it. Because by the time they get out of their sleeping bag, unzip their tent, stick their head out, I'm gone anyway. You know. Let's see, what video are you on right now?
I think it's because they're just marking their territory.
Yeah, and they could be. They could be. It just seems like the fact that they're peeing on people's tents while they're sleeping in. It almost seems like you know it's more thought out than that. But it could be just an animal just pissing for sure.
Yeah,
And
it could be the same thing as marking the trees. But what's
yeah,
interesting, what you're talking about earlier, how the everything had been cleared off and it was just dirt. I wonder if that was a grave site.
Where the pine cone was?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
like
mean,
a grave marker or something. Never
it
know.
wasn't. Well, it was only an area about this big, just cleared away so they could stab the pine cone into the dirt. So I doubt it's a grave, but like the upside down trees, that's a different video than this. I've had people tell me that they think the upside down trees are grave marks, and I'm like, well, if that's the case, then there's 15 dead Sasquatches buried in there.
You never
But
know. I mean, they could bury their dead, and I'm not saying
yeah,
they do,
no,
but
they do
I mean,
something
they
with their
could.
dead. Yeah. Now this one, yeah, if you fast forward like 5 minutes or so, I'll be into the
Oh, I'm
upside down
frozen.
trees. Oh, it's frozen.
Looks like YouTube froze. It's frozen.
Oh wow.
That's funny.
It is interesting how like I was recently on a trip in northern Idaho, and we weren't there for Sasquatch related stuff. We were there for a family vacation, and I went out hunting for Sasquatch sign in northern Idaho. Didn't expect to find any, and I found very conclusive Sasquatch sign. And like in my research area, for example, I've gone to a neighboring mountain, and I spent all day trying to find Squatch sign, couldn't find any. And then I turned down one road, and I just find Squatch sign everywhere. Bent
Yep.
trees, tree breaks, arches, and that's the thing. Like people that try to attribute all of this to Mother Nature, if that was the case, you would just find little tiny fragments of Squatch sign everywhere, but it's not that way. There's none whatsoever. And then there'll just be an abundance of it everywhere, and that it's just no way Mother Nature's responsible for all of what I'm finding. It just can't be, especially like you're about to see these upside down trees. You just passed them, like there's just no way wind, water, snow, weather is doing this. It's These things had to have been done by either people with heavy equipment, which that would be very obvious because there would be roads getting in and out of there. There'd be, signs of machinery in there, or they're being done by Sasquatch. Obviously,
Yeah, they could be
what I
markers too. Could be a way to find their way. Were these close to the river?
yeah, yeah, right by the river.
I imagine
And
it's probably a marker. I mentioned
it
the
could
rivers
be,
change courses every once in a while, every 100 years or whatever. But these markers
yeah,
are probably to keep them going the right way,
yeah,
or
who
maybe they're a
knows?
meeting location.
Yeah, I think I have just a theory, and because I've noticed a lot of these upside down trees are at different ages, different stages of decomposition. And I have no clue why they do it, but I think it might be something more like a new birth, or maybe a new alpha is in charge, or I think it's symbolical of something, and they put them up is sort of an announcement. And see
Yeah, I
that one.
imagine that could be too. It's just some
But yeah,
kind
I
of
mean, it's
marker.
all
Maybe
just
it's, this is my territory or something.
and it's just all theoretical. I don't know why they do it, but I know that they do it. And like people have tried to tell me, oh, loggers do that. That's done by loggers. So I've worked as a logger. I have loggers working for me right now. And these guys, the two brothers that are loggers, have logged from Alaska to Mississippi and all in between. They worked for Columbia Helicopter for almost 20 years doing helicopter logging. These guys are loggers through and through, and they've never heard of a logger burying a tree upside down, ever. And I get that all the time. People are like, oh, don't you know that loggers do that? Like, show me the logging boss that's going to spend money on fuel, labor, equipment hours, and all that to bury trees upside down for no reason. Like they're not going to do that. And then to get a machine in here, you would have to cut a path through all those alders. You can't drive a machine around all those trees. And in order to get to this canyon, I mean, it's just a nightmare to get in there. Getting a machine in and out of there would be so risky to that machine.
Yeah.
All that just to bury some logs upside down in the ground, it just doesn't make any sense, for what? To trick some Sasquatch investigators, like it's more ridiculous than just accepting, yes, they were done by a Sasquatch. On this particular day right here, I had rocks thrown at me 3 times this day, and I was filming actually during all 3 of those rocks. And
Wow.
I didn't like freak out about it. I was trying to be more like, okay, that was another rock, but maybe it just broke 3 and fell off an embankment. Like they weren't being thrown at me aggressively. But I was hearing rocks going tink, 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 tink 3 different times
Yeah.
while I made this video.
Oh, there's that hair.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. I bet you it wasn't because there's so much frost on the ground that
Just to go back. I don't
ice.
even know where it went. Where's the little thing? There we go. Hold on. Let's go back to that for a second. Right there. Hold on. It's too far. Oops. That's way too far. So is that like 20? 2006. Okay. So you're not seeing anything like that.
Yeah, it's hard to say because there's so much of them. I see them how they're all scattered about.
This
I think
here,
that
this here.
has frozen moisture on
Yeah, it could be.
because everything
But
was
it's
icy
weird.
down
What might have happened is it might have blown in the wind and then pulled off.
there. Yeah.
What's strange is it's not on all of them. It's just on a few of them.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it is strange.
That looks like a clump of hair.
Oh, it does. It really does. I didn't even notice it when I was
Yeah, and there's a
filming.
there's a path right here. You can see the path where something's
Yeah.
walked through. I
Oh
bet you
yeah.
anything that's covered with thorns, isn't it? There's
No,
a
those are just little
clump there,
trees, but
there's some there,
they're
and some
open.
there. It's all along that path. If you can remember where that path is, maybe you can go back and grab
Oh,
this.
I know exactly where that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you
Look
say
at
that. I
that.
know.
Look at that. Oh, hold on.
Yeah. No, I saw it. I saw it. It definitely looks
The
like it
viewers
could
may not.
be.
Hold on a second. Where'd it go? Did I go past it? I'm going past it. Hold on. No, too far back. Here. Right there. Look at that. That's
Yeah.
a big clump. Now, I'm not saying it's a Bigfoot. I mean, it could have been an
Uh,
elk or deer or bear or who knows what it was.
oh
But
yeah. But
looks like
that area right
a lot
there,
of places up
I
here.
know
Yeah.
is a hotbed for the Sasquatch. Because right there in that area, there's well over a dozen of those upside down trees.
Yeah.
If you skip ahead a few minutes, you'll get to the section where there's a lot of the bigger, more impressive ones, upside down trees. And I'm working on a video right now. It's not out yet. That it shows all of my X structures, and there's quite a few pretty impressive X structures I've found. Yeah, that
It
looks
looks like
like
you found a pretty good area. Because if you're looking at
yeah.
everything else, see, you're walking through the harder areas where there's
And
nothing's really walking through.
all of this land is so hard to get to. There's
Yeah.
like
But you can
none of
see
it.
where they've been walking through.
Uh-huh.
You went through the harder area. Yeah.
And
There's paths, but that's
there's an
rocky.
elk
That's,
carcass down there too.
yeah. That's hard as hell to walk through.
Well, imagine trying to dig in that and like where they
Shit.
stuck those trees in the ground.
Now, there's probably
They're
rocks, what, 3 or 4 feet deep, if not deeper.
it's all rock. Yeah, I mean it's just basically a big mound of river rock, and somehow they're driving big old logs into it. I mean it's mind blowing.
Crazy. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, I would love to like dig one of them out and see. I don't disturb them. But I mean, I've thought about how cool it'd be to just see what the end of it looks like. Did they do they spin them back and forth and wedge them in like a drill, or they just hammer
Yeah.
it into the ground? Like, I mean, it just makes no sense how they do it. with just their bare hands.
Right.
It's real. I mean, I don't know if maybe they manipulate the end of the log to work like a bore or a drill, or it's just. And
Yeah.
then you're finding upside down trees, anywhere where there's prevalent Sasquatch, they usually have some kind of upside down tree discovery. In Alaska, they seem to be more common. That's why I was shocked when I found them, because I'd never heard of somebody in the lower 50s states, finding upside
Right.
down trees. Since I've gotten more into this, I have found that they have found them down here. But at that time period, I was thinking that there had only been some found in Alaska. And when I found mine, I was just blown away. That right there is one of the big. Well, I can't tell for sure. There's a big one down there. There's a bunch of big ones. Okay, that's not the big badass one. But my favorite one is just this big old fat log with this big old root ball thing on it. But see, a lot of these have been cut with chainsaws, because all of the logs in that area have all been cut by chainsaws. It's all logging wilderness. So it seems like they don't care if there's roots on the end of them or not. They'll pick up a log that's been cut and they will drive it into the ground all the same.
Crazy.
Whereas in Alaska, it seems like all of them had roots on the end of them, but that's probably just because that's what they're finding, is rock
Yeah.
logs that had eroded away and washed into the creek and still had roots on them. So
Insane.
is this getting to the end again, or is how are we doing on
Yeah,
time?
I think we're running out of time. I think we have about 9 minutes left.
Okay.
But yeah, that's very interesting. What we'll do is we'll just wrap it up here in a few minutes, and then we can have you back on another time. As I'm
Yeah,
sure
I'm
you've
getting
still got
ready
a
to.
bunch of stories you haven't told me. You
Yeah,
love
well, I
those
think we
secluded
covered
areas.
most of them,
Yeah.
but I'm getting ready to go up on a big trip soon. I'm hoping to do like 10, maybe more, maybe 20 days up there.
Dang.
Because I never get enough time. A 3-4 day trip, it just seems like it's over so fast, and I'm always like, oh, I didn't get to go there. I didn't go to there, so I want to go up
Yeah.
there and just get all my game cameras set up and just investigate every little nook and cranny that I've never had time to get to, and
Right.
really, really get everything mapped out up there. Because I know
Right.
there's still a lot that I haven't found. I know there is.
Right.
And I have game cameras that I haven't checked on in almost a year right now that are
Oh
probably dead
wow.
battery. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping there's something cool on them.
Yeah.
So we'll find out.
My friend
And
Joe,
yeah,
who
dude,
has a Bigfoot's on his property, he used to hang his trap cams up 10, 15 feet in the air, and he would
yeah.
put something in to angle it down, and
Uh-huh.
he caught stuff all the time on that. He says they don't look up, or he said they don't look up. He's no longer with
Yeah,
us.
that's actually a good point. If they're up high enough, they wouldn't even notice it.
Yeah, most humans will not look above their eyes.
True.
We don't look up a lot when we walk. It's not
We
comfortable
don't.
to tilt your head
Yeah.
up.
So have
And
your
if you
neck
think
up.
about them, their necks are like there's no neck. It's
Yeah.
just big head and little tiny neck. I've never seen them ever do anything other than to look at something to turn their shoulders.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, you've
They're just
never
like
seen them
big
like turn
muscle
their head
head.
like this.
Yeah. No,
So,
I'll try that.
mhm.
It's hard to get them up high,
Oh yeah, it
but
is.
I have some that are pretty high right now that are
Yeah,
way up in this old maple that I climbed, and those are right by the river in a
yeah.
canyon that's really hard to get to.
I would. Yeah, that's where I put them. It's close to the river because they're using that as a
Oh
highway.
yeah, yeah.
Probably. Hi, baby.
Well, man, thanks for having me, and I will
Yeah,
definitely keep you informed if I have any kind of big discovery. I'll be getting a hold of you for a
yeah,
follow up.
definitely. Stay in touch with me. Let me know what's going on.
I
And
will.
then what I'll do is I'll put Hugh's information down below to his a link to his YouTube channel so you guys can go watch those videos. He's going to be coming out with more. So he's got that big expedition going on. I'm jealous of him for sure. I wish I could go out with him and hang out, but he's just a little too far away at this point.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
don't
you're
think my
more than
travel
welcome.
trailer will work real well on that on those roads. Yeah,
Yeah, well, you could get into some of it, but yeah, you wouldn't get to all
yeah.
of my spot.
I think a
But
lot
if
of
you
those are
ever
just
wanted to come out, man, let me know. We could do a
yeah.
trip.
We're
I
out
know
that
some
area. We'll
places.
definitely let you know. Definitely want to
Cool.
get out to Alaska. So we'll
All right.
hopefully be able to see you maybe later this year, maybe next year or something. We can come out and do something. Or if you're ever in Texas, Come out here and
Oh,
we'll
dude,
take you around here
I
too.
want
There's a lot of
to.
weird stuff out here too.
Yeah, I know there is. I want to do a road trip and hit up a whole bunch of famous spots, and,
Oh
and I
yeah,
would love to go through Texas.
yeah.
If my channel gets successful and like I have a decent following, I have a plan of like a big old road trip. I want to go see like Bray Road and go
Oh
hit
yeah,
all those spots,
oh
and
yeah.
it'd be
Well,
awesome.
there's Bigfoots down there. We've had encounters down there.
Yeah, I
Something was
believe
standing
it.
behind a tree and it stepped out. I'm like, what the? Oh my gosh, it's a Bigfoot! And then stepped back behind the tree. I'm like, seriously?
Wow.
By the time
That
I
was
got the
in
camera
in
around, it was
Texas.
too late. It was like, oh, god, you jerk.
Was that Texas?
Yeah, it's in Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've heard of Sasquatch in Texas on YouTube, watching videos and stuff.
yeah. There's a lot of Bigfoots out here, especially
Wow.
down in the national forests. So,
Are you in the part of Texas that has trees? Or are you in the
oh yeah,
Texas?
yeah.
Okay.
We're in what's called Bryan College Station, where Texas A&M is.
Okay.
So we're like 2 hours from everything. We're two
Awesome.
hours from Houston, 2 hours from Dallas. We're about an hour and a half from Austin, and then like 3 hours from San Antonio. So we're a perfect hub if you want to go travel. We're about
Yeah.
3 hours
I,
from Louisiana.
I went to Texas when I was a teenager. Spent like a week in Texas visiting relatives, but we were in like desert Texas.
Yeah, you were on the west side of Texas. We're kind of in
Right.
the central area. They call it
Okay.
Central Texas, but yeah, beautiful
Well,
area. I
awesome.
mean, we have forest out behind our house. I mean, creepy as hell, but no,
Is it warm there year round?
well, right now we're in the 30s, so
Oh, okay.
right, we actually have all the seasons. But yeah,
Cool.
it probably gets up in the hundreds here,
Yeah,
but
same here. Northwest gets hot too in the
yeah,
summers.
I mean, it was
It's
down 18
usually
degrees yesterday, so it goes
you
up
had
down
18
full
degrees?
spectrum.
That's super cold. We don't
Yeah,
ever get 18 degrees here. I mean, for us,
thank
if it gets
God.
below 30, 30 is pretty cold around here.
Yeah, I walked out of my
Okay,
work. I'm
man.
like, oh my gosh, it's snow. We got snow flurries. What the heck?
Wow. Yeah, I
This is
wouldn't think you'd
Texas.
get
It
snow
doesn't
in
snow in
Texas.
Texas.
Yeah.
Nope. Yes, it does.
Really. Huh.
Unfortunately. But yeah, great time to go look for prints. And we get a lot of rain here.
Wow.
We don't get probably nearly as much as you do, but we get about 50, 60 inches a year.
Oh,
So in
yeah.
this area. East Texas gets even more than we do.
Huh. Okay. That's good. Yeah, I thought all of Texas was just desert, but then
No,
I watched videos and see like
yeah. If you cut
forests,
Texas in
lakes.
half, if you cut Texas in half, the west side's mainly desert and the other side's mainly green belts. It's all green. It's all
Okay.
forest.
Huh.
It probably was a lot more before they built Houston and San Antonio and stuff like that, and El
Cut it
Paso,
all down.
all that
Yeah.
stuff was all
Oh,
green.
huh.
But yeah, a lot of rivers, a lot of waterways out here.
Is
Jeez.
that like is the forested mountainous parts of Texas all pretty rural then, or is it all kind of a mixture of everything?
Uh, kind of like where we're at, we have 200,000 people. This is a big town. You get up to Waco, and it's about halfway. Waco is about halfway to Fort Worth, if you're going north.
Okay.
And that's probably the next biggest town to us. And if you go south, you have Houston. So yeah, it's kind of spread out.
Okay.
You have to go a couple hundred miles to get to these bigger cities, and they're kind of few and far between. And then in between, you have towns that have population 18, 20,
Yeah,
100, 200. It's just these little towns on the side of the highway.
okay.
But
No, I love that kind of area though, where
yeah,
where it's spread out like that and rural, creepy little
yeah,
town.
yeah, we're pretty much out in the middle of nowhere. So
Okay.
we're kind of
Yes, yeah, I'm
on our own island, if you will. But
okay.
kind of nice though. I like it.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love it. I live like 25 minutes from Portland, Oregon without traffic. So,
Oh, nice.
I'm in Washington, but we're basically just on the outer edges of Portland, Oregon.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's all busy traffic, shopping centers and
Yeah.
people everywhere, but
Yeah.
economy's good. Has its benefits.
Right. All right. Well, Hugh, thanks for coming on with us. We really appreciate it, and we will
Likewise.
catch you on the next one.
Yeah, man. Have a good weekend.
You too.